Hello, and welcome to another episode of Profiles of Endurance. I'm Father Scott Vanderveer. Today we listen to a part 2 of last week's conversation with Lisa, a young woman who prefers not to share her last name because she's speaking so frankly about a period in her life where the very unexpected happened. She had a baby her senior year of high school, and she shared very honestly with us about what it was like to make that decision, what it felt like to be a mother at age 17 and have people looking at her with all of the assumptions and questions and judgments that go along with people's perceptions of unplanned moments in people's lives. She then went on to meet the love of her life, who also had children from a previous marriage, and about blending their families together as one. Today we get to hear about a wild adventure that the two of them made. Have you ever seen the movie Dirty Dancing, about summertime life in the old resort culture of the Catskills? Well, Lisa and her husband left their lucrative jobs in the food industry to come by a fixer-upper resort in the Catskills. And we get to hear about the adventures of the decade that they spent running that resort in the mountain town of Wyndham. And then how they knew it was time to walk away from that adventure and what they did next, and how the path that they were on led them to faith. It's going to be a wonderful conversation. So settle in and hear this young woman share with us some of the incredible lifetime's worth of living she's crammed in to every moment of her life as she shares it all with her pastor. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you reinvented your whole career and in a way that required your family to live in such a different kind of existence?
Yeah. So it was, like I said, at some point, my husband and I met at work, and, we were happy. At this point, we were married, and we got married, and we had a baby, and we were, successful and enjoyed that company and that work. But I think, because of his first marriage and my, experience as a single mother with my son, it was, having our daughter together felt so different than, anything before. And for me, it just became really clear that I didn't want to leave her. I didn't want to have to put her in daycare all the time to maintain my my career. It just I didn't truly get a chance to enjoy what it was like to be a mother, and I really wanted that. My husband had the same sense of adventure, I guess, of like let's do something else. And it was funny because it started on our honeymoon. We had a fleeting thought on a plane on our honeymoon of which we did it at Mount Rainier in Washington. We went backpacking, and we were just like, wouldn't it be awesome to run a little place, cabins in the woods like this, so you could live in one of these places all the time and just get to be here. And it was like a fleeting thought. But then we went back to, back home, back to work, and, almost a year goes by, I guess, before we decided to start to just have a thought. A thought popped in, wait, why don't we just do that? Can we do that? Can we just do that? Would that be possible? You know what I mean? It was just and, the thought quickly turned into some internet searches, and searches turned into some real properties. And we knew that my husband's kids were living with their mother, and they would see us, every other weekend and vacations and holidays and stuff like that. So we had that arrangement with them. So we knew we couldn't go too far. We needed to be within a distance of where we could still maintain that relationship with them. So we looked at a map, and we just kind of drew a circle, and we said, where's the greenest spot in that circle? And it was the Catskills. So we started to hone in that area. And like I said, with internet searches, just picked up some properties and said, it's can we do this? Should we do this? And we just kind of fell in love with the idea of, doing something for ourselves and being able to have our family be part of that and not have to, be on somebody else's timeline all of the time. So we did it. We did it amongst like a lot of people telling us not to. We were in a very good position where we were, and it was thought of as like craziness. Why are you walking away from this? But we did it anyway, and we bought a little place in Wyndham. In the Catskills. It was an old restaurant and cottages that were there, and owner's residence. So it was an old property. The main building itself was over 100 years old. The cabins were built in the 60s. House, same 50s, 60s. So it was older. It needed some work. There was nothing really going on there when we got there. We bought it from a family who owned it for 50 years. I've come to find out this is a common Catskill story. Family place. At some point the generation gets, third, fourth generation gets tired and the business must be sold. So there was no business there when we bought it. It was essentially just, so it was barely a pulse left in it. So we said, why not? Let's give this a shot. So we did. We quit our jobs and we moved to upstate New York, and then we ran that business for almost the next 10 years.
Wow.
It was great. It was, in the beginning, it was everything that we wanted it to be. We were both able to be, with Willow all the time, and the other kids were there. We maintained that every other weekend thing. Either my husband or myself would drive back to New Jersey every other weekend, as much as we could to get them to come up, which was great. We felt like because they were still living in the heart of New Jersey, where things are not as they are in the Catskills. So they got to see a lifestyle that they wouldn't have otherwise known existed. And for that, it was worth it. And we really enjoyed it for the first few years. Building it was exciting. Going from having zero customers to being packed and full all the time, and meeting the community people, and just being engaged in small town business life was good. But eventually it was like, it started to, at some point, it became clear to us that the building phase was kind of over. You got to the point where it was very much like, okay, this is going to be what it is. There's not too much more room to grow. It's kind of it's a seasonal tourist town, so you don't have a lot of opportunities to get people to come there, except for the times that they come there. And I felt like we had kind of maxed out what we were able to get out of it, and it just wasn't enough. The building was too old. It was kind of like, it became clear that we were either going to have to go into debt to revive this place, bring it really to the next level, or move on. And at that point, we were running a full-service restaurant. We were, well into it. We had employees. We had a lot of responsibility. It was a lot of work, and it's 7 days a week. It's all the time. There's no, so for a decade, it's all you all the time. It doesn't matter if you're sick. It doesn't matter if you have a family obligation or anything. If it's time to make money, it's time to make money. That's what you have to do, because there was no other way. So I think, like I said, we came to realize that it was not going to be a forever thing for us. We didn't want to go into debt to revive this building. We didn't want to continue this work long term. So it was clear for us to make another change. So, I mean, it was great. Like I said, we both my husband and I have an amazing relationship with Willow, because she was with us every day. Both of us, from entire childhood. And that makes everything worth it, because, I mean, that bond will never go away. It'll be there, indefinitely. And the other kids got to see their parents take a risk. They got to see it work, and they got to see them make a decision to, make a change. Because then we found ourselves talking to people like, I can't believe you're going to walk away from this again. Like, it's not right. Because a lot of people were like, you've made it. You've left the corporate world. You're living your dream. You're doing the thing. But it wasn't ultimately what we wanted.
Is it? Yes. It feels to me after working with you that you gained, I don't know what your skills were like before becoming an entrepreneur, but I feel like so much of what you bring to leadership comes from that phase of your life. What do you think are you obviously grew a lot as a parent in your connection with parenting through this. What do you think are the things that will go with you from this decade of entrepreneurship?
Oh, I mean, so much. It's hard to even put that into words. I think there was a level of professionalism I think that both my husband and I had when we came to the table. So I think we never doubted our ability to be able to do something. I think we had enough confidence that we were capable people, but was when we got there, it was like, wow, there was just so much to know. It's just things that you never think you're going to need to worry about. And I don't know. I think it was an experience. I think for me, one of the most impactful things is having other people rely on you. That was a new level of things where you're the one signing their check, and their livelihood is coming from your decisions. And that's, a level of responsibility that even with people reporting to you, you don't really have. It's and you feel a new level of responsibility for that. And and there was a lot of things I think that you realize because you have to that are just totally out of your control. And all you can do is respond. It's like you're in a seasonal place, and every business has this. It's like if it doesn't snow in a winter, I don't make any money. So
yes.
Now, what do you do? Well, that's totally out of my control. And, there's nothing that, you can do but adjust. So I think adapting, adjusting, learning to think on your feet, being creative, just scrapping at every little thing that you can to keep stuff going is, what you get out of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Well, relatedly, as I'm sitting here pondering some of the things you've shared about your life and knowing you, it feels like another big theme is risk. You, in every one of these circumstances, you came to a fork in the road, and one of the choices was so uncertain and fraught with challenge and risk, and you took it. You consistently take the riskier, less paved road. First of all, do you agree with that assessment? Am I reading that correctly? And what do you think you gain from choosing the riskier path in life?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that. I don't know if as you're going through it, you identify it as risk as much as it seems. I think before you make those decisions, it feels like excitement.
Yeah.
It feels like adventure, and you're like, yeah, this is what life is about. Let's do this. When you look at it, like, is it really about, sitting at this desk making all of this money for the rest of my life? I don't know. It just didn't feel like that was what it was about. And then, I just think that, I don't know. I feel like I was thankful my husband shared that kind of, spirit for better or for worse. And it was nice to have somebody to do those things with. And a lot of that time spent in Wyndham was just that, us coming up with things and taking risks and trying new stuff and, dropping what doesn't work and keeping what does. And, it's, I think for us, it's kind of, I don't know, the comfortable path just never seemed to be the right path.
Yeah. Oh, well, and I think the next chapter fits that very well also, because here's where things get a little bit more current. Because when you came to work for the church 2 years ago, you wound up leaving. You made a transition away from the business, and you decided that you were gonna find some other challenges that were going to be a little bit more, maybe you'd say, stabilizing for your family, and put you on a little bit of a different trajectory. I don't know how many other positions at that time you were seriously looking into, but you did choose to apply for a business manager position for 2 parishes here with us, which were definitely positions that required enough organizational experience and financial ability that your background made you just an exquisite candidate. But it struck me that early on when you started working here, you said in a conversation that we had about your own faith life, just a fairly casual but substantial conversation. You said that you had a sense that you always knew that God had a will for your life, and that you were aware that you needed to be more obedient to it. I remember that clearly, because the word obedience really stood out to me. It's not a popular word in our culture at all, obedience. It's a word that evokes a lot of hard associations for a lot of people. What did you mean by that? God's got a will for your life, and you needed to be a little bit more obedient to it.
Well, I guess I have to, to answer that appropriately, I have to back up a little bit. So I think, where I ended up, so from the time that I, left my childhood faith, all the way up until we were, owning our own business in the Catskills, I maintained that indifference to God and faith in general. Again, there was no hatred. There was just nothing. There was just no, it just felt like there was no time, no space. Who needs that? I don't know. It was just not part of my everyday existence. And then, about, 2/3 of our journey, through being business owners, things got really tough. We had some tough decisions, some challenges, some hard times, some, just difficult things going on. And at some point during that time, the thought of, I reconnected to my childhood, in the sense that, I somehow connected my lack of goodness with my lack of God, just as simply as I had when I was younger, that God is good. When I became backed into a corner as an adult, I said, that's just the thought that came back. It came back like a razor. Like, the lack of good here is because of your lack of God. Like, this needs to come back. So I ignored it for a little while. I was like, wait a second, I'm not sure about that. I was afraid of it. I was like, I didn't want anybody to think I was weak, or, I just had this idea in my head that it was going to be, I was broken or weak or giving up or something if I were to turn to God now. I didn't want to be labeled like that. So I ended up starting to, I listened. It was funny. I listened to these mainstream, religious figures, on XM radio. I think is where I started. In my car by myself when nobody was around. Joel Osteen would come on.
Yeah.
Or I would get connected to who was the other guy? Dr. Charles Stanley. In my car, came on the local radio station at the time I had it on. And at some point in all of these messages, I would hear things louder than other things. And it would be like, get yourself in a good Bible-based church. Keep God first place. And I couldn't shake those things. I couldn't shake it. I'm listening all the time. And those are the things that are sticking in my head. And I'm not willing to do anything about it. I'm not willing to, I kept making excuses. I can't go to church. I've been here for 10 years. What am I going to do? Walk through the door of these churches I've been driving past all the time? You know what I mean? Here I am, aren't you happy to see me? I just couldn't figure out, how I was going to do this. I have a daughter now who's, older. She's never been to anything. How am I going to do this? So I was resisting it. And then I still remember, I remember where I was when I prayed, and I was listening in the car. Had just listened to one of those things, and I said, fine, I prayed very awkwardly because I wasn't praying, and I remember just feeling like if I do this with real genuine sincerity, I will be answered, and I just remember praying for, fine, if this is what you want me to do, then just show me how to do it. I just don't know how to do it, and that was my plea. And then, I went to the grocery store and nothing happened. And no, there's no earth it's really awkward there. But about a month later, I was looking for, I wasn't really looking for a job. I wasn't seriously looking for a job. I didn't really need it, but we knew we were trying to sell the business and we were going to need some source of income. Eventually when that transaction happened, we needed to have a steady income, a way to have health insurance, things like that. So I was loosely looking and saw your ad. And I mean, there's a lot of reasons I would have never paid attention to it. Never at any other point in my life would I have considered applying for such a thing. And I just couldn't get it out of my head. I was like, why not? Why don't I just apply for that? And even at that time, I did not connect my applying for your job to that prayer that I said in the parking lot of a grocery store. But I think that when I look back on it now, it may have been,
Wow. Wow. When you started working for our church, you wound up entering the world of organized religion for the first time in a long time. What was that like? And how did it affect what your search was feeling like?
It was fascinating. I actually remember feeling like this is like a world inside a world. It was like, who knew all of this was going on around me all the time? I had no idea. It was like,
yes.
You can exist in the world without anything like that. And you just, when you're not connected to an organized religion or anything, you're just not connected. It's not like you have an understanding of what you're not connected to. You're just not connected. So, and certainly the Catholic faith is really complex. It was not this simple. It didn't have the simple nature of like my childhood church, which is partially because I was a child when I was there. I'm sure it was a little bit more intricate than what I absorbed, but certainly there were a lot more things going on in the Catholic Church. So, I think I found it really interesting. I think I was craving some kind of connection. I don't think I went into it wanting to be a Catholic. I didn't feel that way at all. I didn't feel like I'm going to come here and learn. In fact, it was like a long process of like, being there and being around people. And I think, I was really interested to learn the details of things that I learned from you, that are higher level education things about the Catholic faith, but then also learned like ton just from all of the volunteers and all of the people that are around parish life all of the time. People that I've come now to identify as, faith-filled people. Just how they live their life. That's number one in their life, and that's how they live. In the past 10 years, most of the people I came into contact with were not of that type. So it was refreshing. It offered me insight into things that, I kind of had felt like, being 40 years old, like, I got this, I got it, I know what I need to know in life. And all of a sudden I felt like, gosh, I'm still such a child. I don't know anything I need to know. And I felt like, all of the people around me knew something that I needed to know. Like, it was clear to me that they knew something I needed to know. And I was really thankful that I was allowed to be around them. I felt useful because the business side of your job was easy for me, but that part of it was just an added bonus. And I don't think any of them were trying to teach me that. They were just who they were. And, but I think I've fully experienced, I think that's the way in which God answered the prayer is, put me in that position to know, like, this is what a faith community can do for you. This is what it looks like. There's no high, there's no low. These are just real people, doing life together and trying to, like, be supportive of each other and, like, and that's it. That's really it.
Wow. And it's messy because when you work in the back room of the church office, you get to see all of it. So the messiness didn't dissuade you either.
I think it opened me in a way that I wanted to be open, but I thought I wanted to be open, but it was like, I think, in the corporate environment, certainly my beginnings as a single mom, you just get this toughness to you and you just say, life is about surviving. It's about, getting through. It's about being, protected and it's just not. And I think in the church world, I came across like a lot of really sensitive people. And in my previous, mind, I would have perceived that as weakness in a sense, like there's no time for that. We just, And then you realize, sometimes there's no time for that. Sometimes it's excessive, but a lot of times, it's important. It's what allows people to grow spiritually. It's, if you don't make those parts of you vulnerable, then you're just carrying them around with you. And it's, to see other people living that was the only thing that was going to teach me. I couldn't read it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't be told to do it. I had to just see other people doing it. And because I was unwilling to walk through the doors of the church, God put me working in that and let me see it.
That is so, I never ever thought of it that way before. Walking in the doors felt like too much, so God found a way to sneak you in the back office. That is so fascinating. Wow. Can you describe, it's kind of tender to try to put words to it, but can you describe what your relationship with God is like these days?
It's good. It's good. I think, I would say it's pretty, most days, first thing I think of and last thing I think of, I've got a regular prayer routine. I've got, people in my life I stay connected to that are important to me because of my, faith, these are all words I didn't have 2 years ago, so I just think it's developing and it's nowhere near what I know it could be if I stay connected, it's just all positive, and I think that, the connection to the Catholic faith in particular, I've really found it to be special. I found other people describing it to me special, and I'm like, what's going? I love the saints. I love reading the life of the saints. I love the idea of praying to saints. I feel. I don't feel like, I love your saying of like, is it a little too woo-woo? It would be. I'm afraid to tell people that because it sounds a little too woo-woo, but like, I don't know. It feels natural. I feel like it's great. It's a great addition. So I don't try not to spend a lot of time talking myself out of it. And I just kind of enjoy that it's there. And, and that other people are there with me. So I'm not the only woo-woo in the bunch.
Isn't it true? Oh, it's so, yeah, absolutely. Well, and it strikes me that there's just an openness that I love to believing and on some level knowing that the invisible world is just as real and even larger than the visible world. And we know that from living that the most important things in our life, like the connection between a mother and daughter, the special love between a couple, all those things are invisible. They're not tangible. And so to know that there is this invisible realm that is bigger and, if not as real, maybe more real than the physical life we're living here, feels really, really beautiful and true to me. So yeah, I love it. I love it.
And I think that I've never, as an adult, I never allowed myself to be around people who openly express that. It just adds something different into your life.
How exciting. Oh, you describe it so beautifully. So beautifully. So Lisa, when you arrived, you never dreamed, and no one here ever dreamed, that over the course of 2 years, you would wind up not just becoming acquainted with the Catholic Christian tradition, not just, experimenting a little bit, visiting once in a while, seeing it from the inside and the outside. You actually made the decision to have your daughter baptized a Christian and initiated into the Catholic faith through Eucharist, and you decided to be fully initiated as a confirmed Catholic. So you made that decision earlier in the year. All of us were so excited and amazed that this had been happening, that we were all experiencing together this big transformation, and it was really, really exciting. And then COVID-19 happened, and your initiation, which was scheduled for the Easter Vigil on April 11th, which that's a one time a year amazing bonanza of a liturgy where it's just the most special kind of conglomeration of rites and traditions, and it's just beautiful. Happens in the darkness of the night before Easter morning, and it was delayed, and it's still delayed. It's delayed indefinitely because of what's going on right now. What's that been like for you? And does it feel meaningful, or does it feel random to you that just as you're ready to be fully initiated into this, you are met with an indefinite delay?
Yeah, I thought for a second, oh, God was just kidding. He doesn't want me. Just kidding. I broke it. I broke it. I think it's random. I have viewed it as random. It's, it's, you can't predict things like this. I will tell you, it was, I was fully engaged in Lent for the first time ever. I didn't know what Lent was. We really do Lent in the same way, so I was like really into Lent this season, and I think I finally, like, probably halfway through it, connected to what everybody else knew I was doing, but I was just, doing it, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I get it, I get this, I get, like, why this is all happening along this time. And so I think we felt like a little bit of disappointment in that sense, that it couldn't have been, like, moved into that timeline, but, that is what it is. I feel like it's, there's, this isn't, you learn something from it, you gain something sometimes from enduring these things, but there's no meaning to it. I don't think it's, it will be just as good when I get to do it as it would be otherwise.
And what's a wonderful development here is you had a strong, maybe you'd say motherly intuition that it was important that your daughter have her baptism before this drew on any too much longer, because at her age this feels like a really important thing, and so we were able to accomplish that a couple of weekends ago in a very small ceremony with just some very close friends and family watching on iPhones, and it was just really, really tender, and so I'm so grateful that I got to be the minister that officiated that, and that we got to share that with Willow. It was that's a picture, maybe with your permission I'll put on the YouTube version of our conversation so folks can see her face and your face, if that is a good thing. I am curious about the stage of life you're in right now, which most of our listeners would have no way to know it, but you're actually speaking to me from a house that is completely packed up, right in the middle of the limbo that occurs during a period of closing, where a house that is being sold in South Carolina and that is being purchased by you there, and your house being sold, and just this domino effect of different people's life changes right now is going on, and you're actually speaking to me just like right at the edge of the cliff dive you're about to take into yet another stage of life. Your husband has accepted a career opportunity in North Carolina, and you and he and your daughter are totally reevaluating things and moving to a whole new stage of life. Now that faith is a part of your life in this stage of your adulthood, how are you experiencing this transition with faith now? What's your faith experience of this like?
Well, I'd like to say that I was full of grace and patience through all of this. That would be a lie. So I think, what I am excited about, I'm excited. It's another chapter. I think it's, it's different, and it feels just like anything else, any other time we've made decisions like this. There's a level of excitement, a level of uncertainty, but it feels like the right thing for us right now. And I think that just the fact that I know what the word grace means, and I've seen people use it, has maybe afforded me some of it throughout.
Oh, yeah.
But I think what mostly it's done for me is that I'm going to a new place, but I know what's going to be there waiting for me. I knew, that there would be Catholic parish there, and that I would find the same community there. So, the community that I had resisted for so long then became an immediate root in a place I've never been. So it was like a nice thing to think of. I was excited to go there as a full-fledged Catholic and show up for the first time like that. But I will, I will show up in limbo. But I know that they'll still accept me. So I don't have that fear anymore of walking through the door. And I know exactly what I'm going to find, and I'm excited about it. So I think for that, it's it's given me a lot.
Oh, that's such a beautiful way that you express it. And I'm just struck that, right, for all of us, that's one of the great joys of being a Catholic is you could go to the Himalayas or Madagascar or Taiwan and you would find your family there too. There's nowhere on this planet you could go that there wouldn't be family waiting for you.
Right.
Pretty amazing. Question for you about how you share this with others, because I'm very aware that there are people that have been forwarded a link to this conversation for a very specific reason, that have no connection to you, no connection to me, no connection to where we're speaking. A friend of a friend of a friend said, "Oh my gosh, your daughter's going through an unplanned pregnancy," or "Oh my gosh, you guys just decided to leave your comfortable, predictable jobs and become entrepreneurs." Or, "Oh my gosh, you're becoming Catholic. You listen to this interview." There's so many different things you've shared with us that I think people may be receiving this conversation because of one or another of them. But all of them are connected to this posture you've taken in your life that involves not turning away from challenge or from risks. For the people who've been forwarded this conversation because your life story is one that pertains to what they're going through, what words of encouragement could you give for somebody who's in the limbo phase of things, who maybe like that young teenage girl her senior year who did not know how the story was going to turn out, like the entrepreneur who says let's give this a try, and then has some kind of a feeling saying, "No, we're done now," even though everyone's telling you, no, you can't walk away from this. What words of encouragement do you give to people whose lives are in shift?
I think have courage to listen to that voice inside of you that's urging you in whatever direction that is. I think it's for me, like I said, that obedience comment comes right into the idea of having courage. I felt like maybe some people don't have this, but I always felt like I could hear the right way, right? I could always tell. I could always, at some level, I knew what I should be doing, and it was just a matter of whether or not I was going to, have the courage to do it. Or, and courage comes in a lot of, maybe that was the courage to make a physical move. Maybe it was the courage to be vulnerable. Maybe it was the courage to, it comes in a lot of different ways. But I think, when I look back on all of those moments when I didn't listen to that voice and I chose my will and did it the way I thought I could, it never worked out. It never worked out the way that I wanted it to. So, just, I don't know. I think that people are a lot stronger than they think they are. They can get through a lot more things than they think they can. So it's just really getting yourself there and doing what you know in your heart is right.
It's so good to hear you say that, because it reminds me of Maya Angelou, one of my heroes, was famous for saying that of all the virtues humans can have, courage is the most important. And a lot of people weren't sure why she said that. She would always explain that courage is the virtue you need to practice the other virtues consistently. Because if you don't have courage, she said, when things get hard, you'll back away from your ideals. Because the risks might be too high. And you won't listen to the voice that guides you because it's too shaky, it's too uncertain. She said, only with courage can you do whatever is before you. And I hear that. I hear that being echoed through what you're saying. So you're giving all of us a really good gift. There's a couple questions I'd like to just ask you because I've asked everybody who's been part of this series and given them a chance to share. And the responses have been fascinating. And all of them have given us something. Many people are asking themselves during the time of coronavirus, is this happening for a reason? And some people believe that everything happens for a reason, and other people believe the opposite. What do you say about that question?
I don't think everything happens for a reason. Horrible things happen. So I have a hard time believing that everything happens for a reason, but I do think that, there's like, you and I have talked before, you can find meaning in everything. And I think I've come to understand, and through faith that, God's will is good. So if is not of that, I find it to just not be of God. And that's just kind of, you can always connect to what's good, even in a bad situation. So, I don't think that everything happens for a reason, but I do think that you can gather reason out of everything, if that makes sense.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do understand that. That's really gathering reason. I love it. Almost like vegetables from a garden. There's a lot there, but there's something to harvest. Oh, I like that. When you've had to endure hard things, what do you think has been the key for you in enduring? Is there a common key you've turned to, a common attitude or practice or virtue that has helped you endure the hard things?
Yeah, I think endurance for me, when I think about endurance, I think of it as, it means strength. When you endure anything, it creates strength. If you physically endure something, you create physical strength. If you, spiritually endure something, it creates spiritual strength. I think that, even when it's hard, it's building strength. I happen to do a lot of yoga, so that connects me to that in a very real physical way. It's hard. There are things that are hard, but I know that I'm building strength because of that toughness, that endurance. Enduring that, temporary pain is going to make me stronger in a lot of ways. So I just try and keep that in mind when things are difficult.
Yeah, that's so true. When trainers are working with us in trying to build any muscle, it always involves tearing and being pushed right to the edge of the ability to withstand it in order to then come back together with more strength. And so, yeah, I hear that strikes me as deeply true. The last question I have for you is a question about what all of us are going through. Coronavirus, as we're speaking right now, you're moving to a state that is slightly more open than we are, a little bit ahead in the recovery phase, but we know that until there's a vaccine, and maybe even after that, we're not going to be back to any kind of life that we can connect to what we've known in the past. What are your best hopes for what our life can be like after we get through this time?
Best hopes. I guess most of all, I hope that people don't become fearful of people. I think that could be a really dangerous place. So regardless of what the new scenarios are going to look like, I'm hopeful that they don't make people fearful of other people. I feel like I don't want to live in a world where I'm afraid to shake someone's hand, or where someone is afraid to give me a hug, or I would feel a lot of loss if we changed in that direction. I think there are ways to change and be safe, but I just need to see that I'm hopeful that we'll find a path to, a new normal that doesn't, take the human out of human. It's so much of our interaction and our compassion towards each other requires some type of physical connection. And, I hope that doesn't change.
Yeah. So true. So true. I would love to just invite the listeners to have a moment of savoring, because neuroscientists tell us that we often cling to things that are difficult, and we sometimes have a bit of a Teflon response to things that really can nourish and help us unless we hold them. So let's just take a second to hold this conversation and see if we can draw what is some of the very best nourishment for us. What was it that Lisa shared today that you wish to take with you into your life? What did she say about being a teen mom and the way she encountered others in that experience that makes you want to perhaps think about how to support young people in a different way? How can we recognize the dignity of each person in the life circumstance they find themselves in? What about her entrepreneur stage stands out to you? How did the risk-taking that she and her husband were able to undertake speak to you in what you might need to hear right now? She said that blending relationships together can't happen until they've addressed the brokenness that's present. What brokenness is going on in your relationships that you need to address? How could you bring some patience, some willingness to take it slowly into whatever you're trying to blend in your life right now? Lisa looked for obedience in her life. She had a sense she knew what was right and that God was good, and that if she wanted more goodness in her life, she needed more God in her life. What does that say to you about where you are right now? Lisa, I can't thank you enough for this conversation. It gives me a chance to also say, as you get ready to move into a new phase, how enriched I have been by your friendship, by being your colleague, by being a chance to witness what a outstanding professional you are, but also what a truly upstanding, integrity-filled Christian and woman of faith you are. It has been just such a delightful chapter of my life to walk for these 2 years with you. And I pledge to you that I will pray for you and your husband and your daughter and your son and your shared children. I will be praying for you for the rest of my life. So thank you so much for allowing us to have this crown conversation of the experience of getting to work together.
Thank you. I feel all the same. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you so much to our listeners. May God bless you all.